Okay, so let's make a start. So good afternoon and welcome to this afternoon's free online training where we're looking specifically at Instagram stories. And this really is intended as a session to get you going with Instagram stories or to help answer your questions on Instagram stories. So please, if you've got questions, please put them into the chat and I will endeavor to answer them as we go through. So I'll be talking now for the next 45 minutes or so. Let's just got a couple of slides and then we'll move on to the actually demonstrating stories live. So good afternoon, my name's Andrew Knowles. You'll find me on social media, on Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook. Typically I'm there as Andrew Explainer. Often I use the hashtag Andrew Explains. And it'd be great to see you on social media. So if you're out there and you want to connect with me, you're welcome to send me a connection request, a LinkedIn request, something like that. And who am I? Well, I've been self-employed for 12 years or so. I went self-employed 12 years ago as a writer, quickly got back into the training groove because I've been doing a lot of training work before that. I had a really varied career, was a qualified accountant for many years, got into IT and technology and training is really what I love to do, training and explaining, hence the name. And I've really become a big advocate of small businesses. I was a president of the Chamber of Commerce here in Weymouth and Portland, which is where I live in Dorset. I was president of the Chamber for a couple of years just before COVID came along. And I'm a big advocate of small businesses and I want to help and support small businesses where I can, which is why some of the training work that I do for free, and I want to carry on doing some free training work ongoing to help support because I know that budgets are tight and all the rest of it. So but again, it'd be great. It's great to get feedback and encouragement from you guys about what it is that's useful to you and where things could be made even better. As a trainer, it's really important to me that I know where things can be improved. So I'll be sending out a feedback form after this, and please let me know how where areas for improvement really is the big thing it's important to me. So that's why I do this, because I want to support small businesses. This is free training, but you are welcome if you want to show support and you want to buy me a virtual coffee. You can go to ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com. Find me there / Andrew Explainer. You're welcome to buy me a virtual coffee there to say thank you, to show support, whatever. It's entirely up to you. But so this training is free. So what I'm now going to do is I'm now going to move over to screen sharing from my phone. So I'll just have to turn this off. So give me a moment. So stop the share on there. So you're very welcome to ask questions on the chat. And now I need to navigate on my phone to the relevant place. All right, so I'm now hopefully going to be broadcasting to you from my phone. So it'd be useful to know, can you see my phone screen? And what you should be looking at there is Instagram on my phone. Let's just get the chat back up so I can see that. Okay. Can you see that fine? Can you see that? Can you see the screen? Be useful to know. Yes, thank you, Jane. It's great to know someone can hear me. So what I'm showing you there that's the screen for my iPhone. And we'll be talking today about stories. And I don't know how familiar you are with stories. Again, you feel free to put in the chat, how often you use stories, what you think of stories. Are you a regular story user? Do you view stories a lot? Are you here because you're aware of stories, but you're not really sure about how to make them work? It's helpful to me to make sure that the training meets your needs and where you're at. I'll start by showing you some examples of stories. Not at all struggle to see the point of them, says Jane. That's a good place to start from. Absolutely. And Instagram is really confusing. I mean, let's just step back for a moment and just talk about Instagram, particularly in stories. Because Instagram obviously began as an app years ago, sharing photos and then adding videos. And then they added this whole stories thing. And now they've added reels as well. I'm actually running a session, I think in a couple of weeks' time, where I'm going to be talking more about the differences between stories, reels, and posts, because there are now so many different things that you can do on Instagram. Which one is the right one to do, and why would you choose to do them? And the reality is that there is no right answer. At this moment in time, Instagram would appear to be preferring reels. When I say preferring reels, what I mean is they are particularly promoting reels into the feed on Instagram and things like that. So reels are getting a lot more visibility. If you make a reel on Instagram today, it can also be fed across into Facebook. Stories go into Facebook stories, but not a lot of people really engage that much with Facebook stories. Reels are appearing. I've seen reels turning up on my Instagram and my Facebook timeline, reels that people have made in Instagram. So reels are getting a lot of priority. So there is a question, if reels are that important, shouldn't I be focusing on reels rather than stories? Well, again, that's a choice, but stories have a place. Can you give us your, this is another question coming in, can you give us your opinion? I need to read it from the screen so I can get the full question. Can you give us your opinion on what you think is best for different types of businesses, creator, service-based, that sort of thing? Well, hopefully some of this will come through as we go through. I mean, again, I've seen plenty of examples of all sorts of businesses using these different platforms well. So, I mean, someone who's a service-based business, accountants, people like that, copywriters, they can make use of reels and stories just as well as product-based businesses. Obviously, product-based businesses do have something of an advantage, particularly if their product is particularly, if it stands out really well graphically. So, I mean, there's loads and loads of food producers, obviously, all over Instagram, because food can be made to look really great, as with a lot of sort of other products that people make. Whereas services can be a bit harder, but it's really the answer to all success on social media from the many people I've talked to over the years and encountered over the years who've been successful on social media, and indeed those who haven't been successful, is the one thing really is not so much about what channel they're using, it's more about their approach and consistency. And you'll hear that word over and over again if you read much about using social media marketing. It's consistency. It's being committing to doing something and doing it well, and doing it well consistently, day after day, after week, after week, after month, after month. And that can sound like hard work, and it is hard work. And that's why the people who are successful, they have put that hard work in. There's no quick fix. There's no easy solution there. Some people are naturally more comfortable, let's say, in front of a camera. Some people are more capable, of putting together great graphics. I'm not particularly graphically minded. I do okay, I think. Canva is a great tool for creating graphics. Inexpensively, Canva, canva.com. You're probably aware of it. So it's a great resource for creating graphics. So that helps those of us who are a bit more graphically challenged. I'm just going to take a break because I've just realized that I'm actually running out of battery on this laptop. I need to go and turn the power switch on. Hold on. Usual thing, plug the laptop into the power and don't actually flick the switch. Okay, so let's look at stories. So so it can be confusing because where do you go for these things? Well, stories conveniently, if you go into Instagram, if you're a regular user of Instagram, you'll be familiar with the stories being presented across the top of the screen. So you've got here on the screen on Instagram, you've got the picture that's being shared, in this case, nice picture of Lyme Regis on the coast here in Dorset. And then you've got a series of stories running across the top, those circles. And I can just scroll along and pick out one of those. So let's pick out, well, you can tell there is content behind the stories options on Instagram because of the little orangey circle around this stories indicator. So for example, if you look at the top of the page there, you've got the far left hand side, it says your stories. That's the story in relation to the account that I'm logged in as. Now, I use a training account for things like this on Instagram. So this is not my main account, the one that I'm actually logged into right now. This is a training account. And I actually highly recommend, if you want to mess around with stories, and particularly if you want to publish stuff and see how it looks, mess around with video and some of the features and functions, create a test account. So that's what I've done. This account that I use is a training account. It's a test account. Yes, it's got followers. People actually follow what I post on here, but actually most of what I post on here is just I'm experimenting, I'm playing, I'm learning. So you can create yourself a separate Instagram account, and you can manage more than one Instagram account from the app. You can manage up to 5 separate Instagram accounts from the app or on your phone or whatever. So it's worth having a separate account, a test account. Just give it a random name. No one will know it's associated with you. And you can mess around on there to your heart's content, post complete rubbish. And some of my accounts have got lots of pictures of carpets and walls and things, where I've really been experimenting with the features and functions rather than actually taking nice pictures and sharing video and that sort of thing. So it's recommendation, create a test account. So that's what you're looking at here. It's a test account. So if I just tap on my story at the top there, in the top left, it'll immediately start playing the story associated with this account. So this is a story that I created earlier. Now, stories have a lifespan of just 24 hours. And again, there's a sort of question there is, why would you want posts that only last 24 hours? Well, why, if you post something on Facebook or Instagram, it's going to be there potentially forever. Why do you want something that's very short life? And it makes the posts more engaging. People engage with the posts more because they are short life. They know the content's going to disappear. Oh, right, it's got a notification on the screen that Catherine's following me. And so as we go through this particular set of stories, these are stories that I posted earlier on to the account. And if I just put my finger on the screen, so you can't see what my finger's doing here, but I put my finger on the screen, that pauses the story sequence, because if I take my finger off the screen, you can just see at the top, there are 4 different white bars. They're running across from left to right. And that tells me that I've got 4 pieces or elements to my story, and it's going through them one at a time, and each one is visible for a few seconds. I'm just going to jump back to the start. And what I've done with this particular story is I've got an image, which is just a blank screen. And if I leave it to run, so it runs just for a few seconds, 4, 5, 6 seconds, and it jumps to the next one. And you can see it's showing another picture. And it's actually, the way I've set this one up, it's actually revealing the screen that's behind, the image that's behind. And this is just as a result of me messing around with certain features on Instagram stories. And there are many different features here. Now, it's now finished showing me the story, and it's now jumped out of the story mode. But I can get back into other stories. So, for example, if I go to the Andrew Explainer, which is my own Instagram account, so I'm viewing that. There's a whole series of story items there that talk about the new options for how you can view your Instagram feed. So what I'm using there is I'm using the Instagram story option to share information with you. So if you go through those stories, because they play automatically, you can see that I'm sharing information. I'm giving some news about new features that are on Instagram. And I'm doing it in various different ways. There's various different graphics that are appearing there. I've got some bits of screenshots. I've got some text. I wouldn't bother to read it right now. You can go back and replay this as much as you like. You can jump backwards and forwards through stories just by tapping on the left or the right of the screen. So, for example, if I want to go, what was said on that story item 3 or 4 steps back? But if I just tap on the left-hand side of the screen, it jumps me backwards. And as soon as I let go, it starts rolling forwards again. And if I want to fast forward effectively, then I can just tap on the right hand side of the screen and it jumps me forward. And then when I get to the end of the story sequence, it will take me into another story from somebody else. In this case, it's taking me into an ad. There are also ads embedded into stories. So this is taking me into a government ad about growing your sales abroad. That's not really relevant to me. So I'll just tap on the right hand side of the screen. It will jump me onto the next one. So now it's taking me to a story by Brace of Butchers, which is a local butchery. And if I just jump along, just keep tapping on the right-hand side, it's just going to take me through story after story after story after story. I'll just pause it by putting my finger on there. And Instagram will show me stories indefinitely, frankly, until I'm, and some people do that. Some people browse stories a lot. That's the way some people consume Instagram. So one of the questions is, why bother with stories? Then it's just because stories for some people is an alternative news feed. Some people go into Instagram and they want to see the news feed, the traditional news feed, the square pictures. But a lot of people now go into Instagram and they want to see the reels, or they want to see stories, or a mix of both. And there's no. We're all different, and we all have different preferences. We all engage with these things in different ways. There's another question coming. Do you have a recommended alternative, preferably free, to using the app on a phone if using a desktop, PC or Mac? You can use Instagram pretty well on the desktop now. If you just go to Instagram.com, you should be able to log into your Instagram account. I mean, a few years back, you couldn't do that. A few years back, you couldn't do very much using Instagram on your device. You can now get into Instagram from your phone, from your desktop. You don't have all the functionality. You don't have all the functionality for creating stories, particularly, but you can now create basic stories and post basic stories through the tools such as the Creator Studio. So there's a thing called Facebook Creator Studio. If you're not familiar with it, Google it, Facebook Creator Studio. And there's also the Facebook Business Suite. And both of those have tools for creating Instagram posts and also Instagram stories. Pretty basic stories. You don't have all the option to put all the different things like polls. For example, this story that I've got on the screen right now, it's a poll basically. It's who else forgets to wash their makeup brushes is the question, and you can indicate, are you guilty or not, or you never forget. So you can, features like that where people can engage with your story, those features are not available so much on the desktop versions or through Creator Studio or Business Suite. But you can create some basic stories using those tools. And a lot of people create fancy stories through things like nice graphics, through things like Canva. I mentioned canva.com. Canva is free. Canva is a great way of creating graphics. They have an Instagram stories template, so you can get the right shape for a story, and then you can just populate it with images and things in Canva. You can just then save the image. If you can access Canva on your phone, you can download it from there and upload it, or just download it to your computer and then upload it. And in fact, from memory, you certainly can post some social stuff straight from Canva into the social media channels, but I think that's probably the paid for version. So if you want the free version, you'd want to download the images first to your computer and then upload them to Instagram. And you should be able to do that, as I said, through Creator Studio and Business Suite. It's a little while since I managed Instagram through those tools, but certainly you can do some things through those. So the phone app is the best option for Instagram right now, but you can do an increasing amount through the desktop. I hope that answers that question and gives you more to think about in terms of other options as well. Is there an Instagram version of retweeting? Not as such, no, not as such. I mean, we're talking about Instagram stories here specifically. So the nearest you can come to retweeting actually is within stories. And let's endeavor to come back to that. Right, so I'm going to come out of there. What I'll do actually now is, I mean, I can show you lots of different stories and how people are using them. The best way to learn how to, or to be inspired to put stories together, is to look at what other people are doing. Spend time in stories, spend time looking at the options that people are using and the tools they're using. Are they creating, are they asking for engagement by creating little polls and getting people to say, yes, I like this and know that, or are they just, are they making good use of video? Take a look at what other people are doing, see what appeals to you, and see what, as far as you can tell, seems to be working for them. I mean, ideally, talk to other people who are using Instagram and using stories and ask them, how things are working for them. Because I know people can put a lot of time into creating posts on Instagram, and they can create a lot of time creating stories and reels. And are they getting the payback for that time? I know people who spend a lot of time, invested a lot of time, and they don't appear if you ask them, they're quite candid about it. They don't seem to be getting the payback on it. They're not. But on the other hand, if they enjoy doing it, then that's part of the payback. Some people love doing this stuff, and that's the other challenge. If you don't enjoy it, then it's going to be harder work. There's no two ways about it. It's a choice. Like all these things, you've got to decide, is this the right thing for your business? I mean, stories is just one tiny, tiny option within the whole range of social media and digital marketing. And is it the right option for you, for your business? That's something that you need to decide. Think about it in terms of, do you enjoy it? And are you getting results from it? One of the benefits of stories, and this is a new thing that's only recently appeared on Instagram, is that you can share a link from a story to your website, or indeed to any other website, to any other web page. Now, until a short while ago, this was only available to people who had very large accounts on Instagram. I think you have to have 10,000 followers, but now they've made it available to everyone. So one of the issues with Instagram is it's hard to share links to your pages. Well, stories are the one place where you can do that. So what do you say is the easiest and quickest way to, let's try that again. Which would you say is the quickest or easiest to do, stories or reels? Well, again, if only there was an easy answer to that. I would probably go on the route of saying stories are easier, because you can create a story relatively quickly. Reels can be really quite straightforward. You can just talk to camera, and that can be a reel. So it doesn't need to be clever and sophisticated. And reels, to my mind, reels, it's very easy to get sucked into the world of reels because they're fast moving and they're just fast paced, and there's one after the other. I'm probably more inclined myself towards stories, but then I come from a writing background. I'm more of a words person than an images person. So and for me, words on the screen, you can use those quite effectively in stories. So probably easier to do stories. And again, if you're unfamiliar with reels and stories, then have a start with stories and see where you get to. Remember, they only last for 24 hours. So even if you put stories out there and you think, well, they're okay, I'm happy with them, but, well, they're not going to linger there forever. They'll be gone within 24 hours. They can last more than 24 hours, just like all these things. There's always an exception to the rule. You can reuse stories even after they've been and gone. You can use them in what are called highlights. Anyway, so let's go through the process of creating a story here. I'm conscious that time is rattling on. We've not even looked at stories here. So again, we can't go through all the options. There's way too many. Really just do a real basic walkthrough of creating a story and talk through some of the options there. And again, it can be confusing if you're unfamiliar with it. I appreciate that. So feel free to ask questions as we go. So there's various ways of getting into creating a story. The way I tend to use is pressing the little plus symbol on the top right of the screen here on my iPhone. I'm using an iPhone. If you've got an Android phone or an older iPhone, it could be that your app looks slightly different and the options are in slightly different places. They're not identical across all the different networks. So when I press the plus symbol, and that immediately brings up a menu, and it's saying, what do I want to do here? Do I want to create a post, a reel, a story, a highlight, blah, 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 a whole load of things. Well, I want to create a story in this place. Okay, so I'm going to choose story. And it jumps straight into my photo, the list of photos that I've got on this phone right now. So the very first thing it's doing is saying, which photo do you want to share? Now I'm actually going to come out of this because I'm going to answer the question earlier on about retweeting or what's effectively retweeting, because there is another way of starting a story, and that's from a post. So if I go back to my feed, so I just tap on the little house symbol in the bottom left corner. So this is back to the feed on Instagram, and this is a lovely picture there of Lyme Regis by the sea. So I want to turn this picture that somebody else has posted. I'm going to turn this into a story. So this is effectively where the retweet, or if you like, or the sharing comes in. You can't share Instagram posts easily into other Instagram posts, but you can share Instagram posts into stories. And here's how you do it. So simply, I've got this post here from Love Lyme Regis. I just want to go to the little paper aeroplane icon, which is the third one across from the left, just below the photo. Tap on that, and it's given me various options. Who do I want to share this with? And the top option is add this post to your story. So I want to add this post to my story. So there we are. I'm going to tap on there, and I've now created a story. And that's it. I could stop at that point. I have now created the story. I haven't posted the story, but I've now created it. I don't need to add anything else to it. And in fact, I won't add anything else to it because I want to go back and show you the other way of doing stories. But I now just use the options at the bottom of the screen. So where it says your story on the bottom left, I can just tap on there. And done. Oops. It can get a bit confusing at this point. It was actually already posted. Let's just cancel discard media. But it brings up this menu to add the post to your story. I don't know whether it's just me, but this always slightly catches me out because I add post to story. Well, I've already added the post to the story. So I just want to close that down rather than just pull it down the screen by use my finger on the top of it and just pulling it down the screen. And that closes that menu. And that post there from Live Regus should now be in my stories. And if I go back to my account and tap on stories, there we are. So I'm now looking at my stories. So I've now created a story. So that's one way of resharing other people's posts. You can share someone's post into your stories. Someone else can share your posts into their stories. You can share your own posts into stories if you want to. But you also have all the other options that I'm about to show you. So I kept that really simple, but you don't have to keep it simple. You can add other elements to it. So I'm going to go back into creating a story from scratch. So let's just press on the plus symbol and then choose story from the menu. And it takes me, as I said, straight into my gallery of pictures that are on this phone already. So which one am I going to choose? Let's go for the clock. So there we are. It's a picture of the clock. So I've now created a story. And again, I can post this immediately without adding anything else to it by hitting your story at the bottom of the screen there, or by hitting the arrow at the bottom right as well. They both do the same thing. They're both posting options. They're just slightly different choices as to why you have the two. But I want to start using some of the features of stories. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to shrink this picture. So I'm just using my two fingers on the screen. In fact, I'll put the screen up there so you can see it. I can just do that, and I'm sure you're familiar with navigating around on a smartphone. Just use your fingers to move things around. So I'm making the picture smaller and larger. I can change the angle on the picture. So there we are. I'm going to actually move the picture of the clock there. As I said, this is a test account, so it really doesn't matter what I post. I'm not trying to create anything particularly sophisticated. I just want to experiment with the features, really. And then there's a whole range of things I can do. I can add text to this. I can add GIFs and stickers and all sorts of things. I'll just walk you through those quickly. So best to experiment yourself and get familiar with the options. They do keep changing them. They keep adding new options in. So it's a constantly moving set of features. But the basics haven't changed really for some good time. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to add some text. So there's the 4 icons across the top right of the screen. So the first one, it's got letters on it, it's text, just tap on there. And then you've got choices here. You can choose, you've got various different fonts you can choose from. So there's a row of different fonts going across the bottom. Which one do I want to use? I'm just going to stick with the default one right now. Then there's various different options. Well, let's start typing some text and then we can demonstrate these. So I'm just going to say telling, and it autocorrects, which is really handy for people who are really rubbish at typing like me. Despite being a writer, I'm not very good at typing. Getting the word letters in the right order. So telling the time, so there we are, and you can see what it's done is it's created the text, and the text has got a particular color to it. Colors are important in all of this, so it's got currently the text is black and it's on a white background. I can change that, by using one of the icons at the top, the third icon in from the left with a little A and a sort of 2 little plus next to it. If I just tap on that, that takes the white background away. If I tap on it again, it turns it into a black background with white text. And again, so it cycles through 3 different options. Let's say I want to change the color of the text. or the size of it. Well, changing the size of it, let's change the size. I can change the size by using the little scroll bar up and down the side, although that's not the only way of doing it. I can change the color. There's a color picker there, the little color wheel at the top, second one in from the left. Just tap on that. And then if I do that, that gives me a range of color options across the bottom. Which color do I want to use? Do I want it to be blue? Do I want it to be orange? And again, you can then cycle through those different options. Do I want pale orange or dark orange or vice versa? Now, what I like to do, I said I'm graphically challenged, but what I don't like to do is try and match the colors of the text with something from the image, because that's a good thing to do. And you can do that by using a little color picker on the far left hand end of that row of colors. You just tap on the color picker and it says, which colors do you want to use? So I can then move around. So the point where my finger's touching, that's where it's taking the color from. And let's actually, I quite like this. Let's try and do the red from the second hand. So there we are, just go there, right. So now, okay. Then press done. So I press done in the top corner, and there we are. So that's given me that particular combination of colors. Again, I said I can change the size of it. I'm just putting my fingers on the screen now, making it larger and smaller. I can move that text around on the screen. Okay. So I'm going to leave it there. Right. I can change the angle as well. But let's do that. Let's put an angle on it. So that's text. You can have hours of fun just with the text, never mind all the other features. Okay, so let's get into stickers. The stickers are the second one across from the left on that block of 4 on the right-hand side. And stickers, there's a whole load of things here. So if I open that, you can see there's a location sticker. If I tap on location sticker, it says, well, where am I? So it immediately gives me a list of places nearby to where I am, and I can choose that location, and that location becomes a sticker on the image. But if I'm not actually in the place where I want to tag, you can tag other places. So for example, I was in London at the weekend. Let's say I'm sharing a picture of London right now on a story. I could just type in London or Tower Bridge or whatever into that search, and it would let's do that. Tower, oops, so I'm rubbish at typing. TOWER, Tower Bridge. I'll type in Tower Bridge, and it brings in Tower Bridge as a location. Now, of course, that location is entirely irrelevant to the clock, but hey ho, I'm going to leave it there anyway. Back to stickers. The mention sticker, that's where you can tag somebody else's Instagram account, or indeed your own Instagram account. And if you put a mention onto a post, so let's say you're sharing something which is somebody else's post, or you're referencing somebody else in some way, you can tag them in your story by using that. They'll get a notification that you've tagged them, so it's a way of getting their attention as well. And then there's a whole range of other options. Again, I'm not going to go through them all. There's a quiz option, there's a hashtag option. You can put hashtags there. You can put the time on there. There's a clock right down at the bottom. The temperature. You can have a countdown. So let's say if you're using a story to promote an event of some sort, you can create a countdown timer. You can set it for how long it wants to run for. And there's a load of other options. You can also add a photo in. So for example, in the middle of the screen now, you've got the camera icon on the left-hand side, and then in the middle, the icon that's in the center is actually accessing your gallery. So if I tap on that, it will go into my gallery. So I can put in, so there we are. So I've now got 2 pictures, the clock and the picture of some headphones. And so you can put multiple pictures into your story. So, oops, cancel that. So there we are. You can add music. There's an option to add music. So there are many, many different options that you can have here. Let's go back to the questions. So Lara was asking, on a laptop, when you click that button, you only get the option to do a post on Instagram itself. Yeah, you need to go and say Creator Studio. Google, I don't know whether you're familiar with Creator Studio or Business Suite, Lara, but if you're not, Google them, find your way into Facebook Business Suite or Creator Studio. You should be able to access both of those, and from there you'll be able to post some elements of stories. They're just not as sophisticated. In fact, you can schedule stories through Business Suite. I think you can schedule stories. which is great. Do you need a Facebook account to access those? Absolutely you do, yes. Facebook and Instagram are the same organization. And most people know that, I know, but it's useful to remind us ourselves. Facebook and Instagram are the same organization. And so it's a bit seem odd. Why am I using Facebook tools to post into Instagram? Well, it's the same company. Now, the other sticker that's worth mentioning here, and this is the new one, and this is the very valuable one, is the link. I'm not on Facebook, says Lara. Well, then that's the limit, the limitation, unfortunately. You would need a Facebook account in order to do that. So the new feature is adding a link to a web page. So you can see there in the middle of the screen that I've got up there, it says link. This is the link sticker. So if I tap on link, and then it says, what page do I want to link to? So where do I want to link to? So this is where you put the URL. So there's the option to scan the URL from a screen. You can obviously type in the URL manually, the web address. Let's say you want to link to a particular page. Let's say you want to link to a product page on your website, or let's say you're using Etsy or something like that. Then that could be quite a long URL to type in. You know, some product pages are very long, so you don't want to do that. You just go copy and paste the web address from the browser. How do I get to the browser? Obviously, if you're running a smartphone, you've got a browser. So, for example, I've gone back to the home of my smartphone here. And if I open up Google Chrome, and let's just go into my own web page on here, and let's go to blog. And let's just choose one of my blogs. So yeah, guide to blogging. So there we are. So this is the guide to blogging page on my website. And I can just copy the web address from here. Well, I can't actually see the web address. I mean, it says at the top andrewknowles.co.uk, but the web address, the URL is going to be longer than that, isn't it? Well, it is. I'm using Google Chrome, by the way, which is the browser that I'm using. That's the browser that I choose to use on a phone, but there are plenty of other browsers. So I just put my finger on the address at the top there, and it says copy. So I just copy that there. So I've now copied the web address. Come back to Instagram. Come back to this field here and put my finger on there again and paste. And you can see now it's put in the full web address. So although the only visible web address on the screen was quite short, it's actually put in the full web address. And then I also have the option to customize the sticker text. What does customize that mean? Well, it means that basically I can change the text. So what I wanted to say on that sticker, I don't want that long web address to be displayed on the sticker. I mean, it just looks awful. So I'm just going to type click here and then done. So click here, click here. Call to action. If you're going to use a sticker text, it's worth putting a call to action there. What's the action that you want someone to take? And calls to action are really powerful in all forms of marketing, and make it an imperative, make it something where not just if you're interested, do this, but it's a click here, make it a bit more active. So again, this is out of context really, because all I'm doing here is putting together a series of images on a post. I'm not building a nice looking post or a nice looking story. I'm just showing you some of the features. Okay, so I'm going to let's have a quick look at some of the other options. So there's the other options for how you can present the story. For example, if I just drag left and right, you can probably just see there's a slight change in the color of the screen. That's because it's applying a different filter. There are a whole range of different filters. So that's normal, Rio de Janeiro, Tokyo. So again, you can change the look of your story just using a filter like that. Then using the icon, the third icon across from the top in that run of 4, the third in from the left or the second one from the right, depending upon how you're looking at it, the little 3 stars, tap on that. And that gives me a whole lot of other options down at the bottom of the screen. So I can add yet more features. And click on some of those and you can see it so that one there does something really weird to the photo, makes it sort of change regularly. Like that option there gives it a slightly old school video look. And again, there's a gazillion of these different filters. I'm actually going to turn it off. I don't particularly use those filters, but they're there if you want them. Okay, so whenever you finish using a particular option, like putting text in or something like that, you just use the done option in the top left, top right, sorry, done. A couple of other options are hiding behind those three little dots. Just tap on the three dots. There's a draw option, which allows you to draw on the screen. So just tap on draw, and then it brings up a whole set of tools at the top. There's pen tools of various sorts. And what I quite like is the arrow tool, which is the second one in from the left. Just tap on the arrow tool, and what that allows you to do is then create an arrow. So draw a line. So I'm just going to draw a line here, squiggly line, and then it puts an arrowhead at the end. It's a bit messy. And again, you can change the color of that. If you're not happy with it, just undo it. There's a range of color options across the bottom of the screen. I'm just going to choose the red one, and I'm going to do that again. And I'll just do it in the middle of the picture. There we are. Now you can see it's layered the image here, as in when I move the arrow and I went behind the picture with the headphones on, the arrows disappeared behind the headphones. Remember, I can just press done to be done with that, and I can come back to any of these elements. I can still move it around. That's interesting. It's done this little pattern there. Oh well. So I can still move all of these things around just by putting my finger on them. So there's a lot of flexibility. You can have hours creating a little story like this. Bear in mind, it will only last for 24 hours. So you need to balance up the time that you spend on it there, but it can be quite fun if you enjoy that sort of thing. And then when you're done, just hit your story, or what I'm going to do this time actually is I'm going to hit the arrow in the bottom right corner. And it's given me options of where I want to share it. So previously, I want to just hit on the your story option. It just posted it straight away to stories. Now it's saying, well, what are your options? Where do you want to post this? Do I want to, well, let's look at the sharing options. I'll tap on your story where it says sharing options. And it's encouraging me to share this to Facebook. Remember, you can share stories to Facebook as well as Instagram. Stories haven't really taken off on Facebook, I have to say. Not many people really use them in my experience. I've heard a lot of other people say that they're not quite sure what the point of stories on Facebook is, but they're there. Now, if your Instagram account is linked to a Facebook account, then that's where it makes sense to share it across the two, or you have the option to share it across the two. Obviously, if you're just on Instagram and you're not using Facebook, then you won't get the share option come up because there isn't a Facebook account page to share it to. This particular account that I'm using on Instagram is linked to a Facebook account, but I've chosen not to link the stories. So I can say, although the pages are linked from an admin point of view, which is why it's prompting me. It's saying, do I want to share the stories? Do I want to share the stories to Facebook every time, or just share once or not bother? Well, I'm not going to bother. I don't want to share these stories to Facebook at all. So I'm just going to hit cancel and then press share. And then done. And there we are. So that story that I just created has now been shared to Instagram as well. So, and again, you could go along to that account. The Cucumber and Brown, it's just a testing training account. It's full of complete and utter gibberish, really, from training courses like this one, because I'm putting together stuff which is hopefully useful to you. Just going back to the questions. Any other questions? We are getting towards the end of time, so this is the last chance really for questions. Obviously, we established with Lara that you do need to be on Facebook if you want to use those Business Suite tools and the Creator Studio tools. So the last thing I want to show you very quickly is highlights. So highlights is where you can give stories a new lease of life. So the stories only last for 24 hours, then they're gone. At least they're gone for everybody else. But in your settings, and I'm not going to go and find it right now, but somewhere in settings, there is an option to say, store my stories, archive my stories. I'll be honest, I can't remember off the top of my head whether it's turned on or turned off by default. I think it's turned off. I think you may need to go and turn it on. So you need to go find the option in settings. And by the way, I'm making a whole load of very short training videos that cover very specific questions. And I really ought to do this one, oughtn't I? How to turn on turn off the storing of the archive option for stories. So I ought to go and do one of those. But I'm creating these short videos and I'm putting them onto YouTube. So if you go on to find me on YouTube, you'll find there's a growing number of little how-to videos that cover very specific individual questions, rather than being a longer session such as this one. Okay, so highlights. So highlights is where stories have a longer lease of life. So let's go and find an example of somebody using highlights. Now, I've got some highlights in this account, but let's go and find somebody else. Actually, let's go to Lyme Regis. Right. So let's stick with Lyme Regis. Love Lyme Regis. I have no idea who runs Love Lyme Regis, by the way. I just picked on it because it was at the top of my feed. And you see there's a whole load of circles there across the middle of the screen. Those are highlights. And highlights is where they've turned stories into elements that will sit on Instagram potentially forever. So and you can use these for various things. You can effectively use these as information pages. In this case, they're being used to share different aspects of Lyme Regis. So stunning presumably that's sunsets, low tide, after the storm, moonlight. Let's go into moonlight. So I'm going to tap on moonlight. And there's just one story element there, so that you can see that there's a solid bar going across the top. They're using video in this story. We haven't talked about video, but you can put videos into stories. And they put some text on there. Love the soothing sound of waves on a moonlit evening. They tagged it with a location and also with an account, their own account. And if I take my finger off and look again, it says 82W. This story was posted 82 weeks ago. So that's like, what, almost 2 years ago. So this is quite an old story. So stories have a life of 24 hours, but you can bring them back to life from your archive and turn them into highlights. So I'm going to just close that now. And I'm going to go back to my own account. So I'm on the Cucumber and Brown account, and you can see there's a whole load of highlights there. As you can probably guess, they're from previous training courses that I've run. And right at the far right-hand end, I've scrolled to the end, there's a plus, and a plus says, do you want to create a new highlight? And yes, I want to create a new highlight for this account. And then what it does is it opens the archive of stories that I posted in the past. And you can see right down at the bottom there, there's the telling the time icon, the story that I've just done. And there's a whole lot of other stories that I've created going back over time. Every story that I've ever posted on this account will be here. And I can turn one of those into a highlight or multiple into a highlight. How do I do that? I simply select them. So I'm just going to choose 2 or 3 at random. So I'm going to choose the C one, and then I'm going to choose this one here, and I'm going to choose the Lyme Regis one there. Again, totally unrelated to anything, but it's just to demonstrate the principle. Click on next in the top left. And then I get the option to put a cover on the highlight. What's the cover? The cover is what's in that circle on your profile. So when someone comes to your profile, what image do you want to see on the cover? And you'll see that some people are, they use very similar covers. Some use identical covers on every highlight, but you want the cover to reflect something of the content behind the highlight. So I can go to edit cover, and I can, so it's taken the first picture, so I'll just choose that, but I can actually use any of the images, any of the 3 images I can use as the highlight cover, or indeed I could use an entirely different image again as the highlight cover. There's the little gallery symbol there to the left, and if I tap on that, that takes me into my phone gallery, and I can choose any picture I want from my phone, and I could use that as the highlight cover. I'm just going to stick with the C, however. Press done. I can also give it a name, so it says the C, so I'm just going to put March in there because it's March. Corrected my typing it again. Brilliant. Because we're in March 2022. Press add, and it's created a brand new highlight. And if I scroll across, that highlight has been added to my profile, and it has been added at the far left-hand end. So whenever you create a new highlight, it's added at the far left-hand end. So you can't change the order of highlights. The new one is always at the far left, and it will bump all of the others along to the right. You can delete highlights. You can go back and edit them. If I want to go back into, let's say, go to this one here, which says Weymouth, you just tap on that. And there's a little button, little 3 dots in the bottom right corner, sorry. It says I can remove this particular story from a highlight. I can edit the highlight. There's a whole range of things I can do. Boost story is about turning it into an advert. Okay, so Jane was asking, I've just seen about how to convert to highlights. Can you edit highlights and add them afterwards? Hopefully I've answered that question, Jane, by showing you how you can get back into a highlight afterwards. Just click on those 3 little dots in the bottom right-hand corner, and you have these edit options. If I type on edit, for example, So these are the 3 story elements that were in that highlight that created it earlier on. And then if I scroll, just pull my finger across to towards the from right to left, then it shows me all the other posts. So I can, let's say, for example, choose Lyme Regis, and then done. And so I've now added the Lyme Regis element to that highlight. And of course, I could have deleted some of the other pictures. So you can see there how you can edit that. So hopefully that explains it. Okay, that's a very, very quick overview of stories. The power of stories really is how you choose to use them. Bear in mind they're short life. My encouragement is to try and make them engaging. So use some of the options for getting people to engage, the options for people to obviously click through to your website, but also options for getting people to engage. There's a slider option there. We could have people give their opinion on something. There's little quiz options. You can ask people questions. There's a growing number of options that are about engagement. So I encourage you to use the engagement options, because that helps to make your posts more interesting for people rather than just skimming past. It's dead easy to share a post and not really add much to it. And to be honest, those are really boring stories. You don't want to bore people. You want to be interesting. So you're limited really only by your creativity and by the tools that are available. And there are a lot of tools available to you. So I hope that's been useful. I hope I like to think that you're inspired to go and have a go at stories. Remember, if you're not sure about it, create a test account where you can just go and mess around with stuff to your heart's content, and there's no danger of you posting a story which is full of gibberish like I tend to do to your account. You can delete stories, by the way, if you just go to when you've got a story up on your displayed on your screen. If it's a story you've created, again, the little dots should appear in the bottom right-hand corner, and then there'll be an option to delete it. So if you post a story and think, oh, maybe I don't want that story there after all, you can delete it immediately, or indeed at any time within the 24 hours. So I said, I hope that has been useful to you. I have, I think, stopped sharing. Have I stopped sharing now? I've stopped sharing. So I'll be sending out a feedback form. So I'm really interested to know, what else could be done to courses like this to make them even better for people like you. I'd appreciate your feedback. Thank you. And I'll be posting out a link to this on YouTube. And again, you're very welcome to share that link with other people. So thank you very much.